I feel like I'm going to have a show going on now. Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to my talk today. And today we discover ourselves, actually. So I'm an iridologist, wellness coach, and the president of the International Iridology Association. So I'm here because iridology has been used in the 1980s in America, I think. Some people know it. I met some people who have been in this holistic circus for a long time. And they're like, hey, I've used it in the 80s. And I'm like, I know, it's 2022 now, right? So what happened is in the last 40 years, we have done so much research, which was done more outside of America, because it is a preventive tool. Iridology is seriously, really a preventive tool. It shows your strengths and weaknesses the moment you're born. So if I look at children like 5 or 6 years old and I can see a weakness in their kidney, it doesn't mean that they have a kidney failure or kidney weakness. And this is where sometimes iridology was like a little bit booed out in America. When you Google iridology on the wide web in America, the first thing that comes up is it's pseudoscience, it's this and that, and it can't be used. And it's true because we have to understand where we're fitting in, and we're fitting into the world of preventive care. So when I see a sign, it's not that you have a kidney tumor, no. And a brown pigment is not a tumor. It's not that you have messed up your life and that's why it shows up. It is a DNA trait. So the moment I look at children's eyes, I can see already what they inherited, not just the beauty from their mom and dad, but also the complete chromosome and DNA in the eyes. So for the last 20, 30 years, since we have digital cameras, we have gone really deep into the research to find out what can we see and what we can analyze. And so then we tapped full-hearted into the personality traits. This is when it gets really interesting because I have 2 children, and I could look in my children's eyes as early as 4 or 5 years and already know their personality traits. Not only that we know their personality traits over years and years, but now my 2 children are 20 and 13, and it's exactly what I thought they would be. One is more spontaneous, can finish anything, a million ideas. The other one is very type A personality, like very type A personality. So that's why I'm here to show you today how your eyes can guide you to understand yourself better, including relationship-wise. This is when I always was making fun of, like, if my whole holistic world is just gonna get bored for me, then I'm gonna make a dating app, okay? And after this 1-hour talk with you guys, you kind of get an idea what I'm talking about. So just like quickly here, I'm the diplomat of iridology, which I have put a lot of research into it, and so I have the highest form of education in the international world. Doesn't mean too much here yet in America, but we're getting there. I'm also a master herbalist from the European background, so I'm originally from Vienna. I live in Philadelphia right now, but I still was flying 5.5 hours. That was still long, actually, to get to you guys. And I'm also an Amazon bestseller, a national and international speaker. One of the biggest trips I had was to Japan and to Australia to give the newest research about iridology. And I'm also the president of the International Iridology Association. I think the write-up was done 2019 on your brochure. Did you guys see that? And it said he was nominated for president, which I was thought, it was funny, it was a little grammar mistake. It's she. She's nominated. And I was nominated 2019 to be the president, and now I've been it for over 2 years already. So that's just like a little side note. And today I just want to come to you and kind of explain really what iridology is. Most people understand it. A physical iridology is you can see the weaknesses and strength on the fibers. So for that, I want to just kind of point to it. Let me see if this works. Unfortunately not. Let me see. So what it is we're looking at the fiber lines. You can see them, it looks like a snowflake, right? You see the white fibers and you see the pigmentation around it. When you see that, that's exactly what we're looking at. And there's not a single iris the same, not even when you're twins. And that makes sense too, because if we go back to personality traits, you know, when you ever had friends, they're twins, you can recognize them. You can recognize the difference, the way they're behaving, right? There's always one completely different. One is more dominant, one is more relaxed. So in this case, that's what we're looking at, and that is giving us the message to look into the physical, the emotional, and spiritual iridology. It's been around for a long time, so that means, 1000 BC, Babylonians knew how to read the seeds from the eyes, and you see always the eyes constantly on some kind of pictures, right, of old runes. And there was this medical doctor from Budapest, Hungary. He came into this, there's this nice little story on the internet that he found this owl and then it broke the wing by accident, he heard it, and then he saw a line in the eyes change, right? It's true and not true. You know how we like to have sometimes some mythologically kind of stories? But that's not true, because then he said also when he fixed that wing, then the eye kind of changed back. Boom. This is the right first thing that I'm going to have to set straight. The eyes don't change, they accumulate. Because it is your footprint, it's your DNA. So how could your chromosome and your DNA change in this lifetime? It just can't, right? This was given to you from your father and your mother. So there are a lot of YouTube videos here in America where people make claims that they were they went on a choose fast, right? And they choose themselves away for like 3 months, and then they said, my brown eyes turned blue. That is not true. From the scientific research, we found out the pixelization looks brighter, but the sclera changed, which is the white part behind the pigmentation. And that is where I'm here to make sure that we are correct. So it's not pseudoscience, it's real science. And real science looks at the findings and the pigmentation saturation, and it could not be proved. So then we went back to those books where they said, hey, there's this my before and after picture, right? And then we found out that their eyelashes weren't brown, they were white. So that means something happened here a little bit with the pigmentation saturation, because before the eye was doing the choose fast, it had brown eyelashes, and then before and after, the brown eye turned blue and the eyelashes were white. So that is what I'm saying. So that's why when you see it on YouTube and you see all those claims, you can go into a choose fast now and choose yourself to death, and you will not change your colors. Does that make sense? And this is where it's very important to understand that you're not a cleansing failure. It's just not going to happen. It's you. You're not cleansing yourself away. So this is the first thing I need to make set straight. I've given a talk in New York, and there was like 2 or 3 people getting really upset about that, and they started yelling at me and walks out the room, and I'm like, wow, that's interesting. What is research and science, right? Research is to set things straight that we didn't know before, right? Medical people before didn't know exactly to use lasers, to cut the gallbladder out, Before that, they cut you just like 10 inches long open, So that is the same thing in iridology, but because it's not being found out too much in the public, people running with old knowledge. So then a lot of new iridology students go to iridologists who were trained from the 1980s and studied their material, which is from the 1980s as well, right? So that is why I'm here to set things straight. And that's why the International Iridology Practitioner Association is here to give you the warning and information that we have to move on with time. I would love to make like this magic trick of saying, okay, you take this kind of herb, and when you come back in 6 weeks, your eyes have changed. It's not the fact, but you know that you feel better, and there's also the sclera. But today I'm here to make it more fun, because this is boring right now, isn't it? A little boring. We need a little bit of entertainment factor. So what is best entertainment as knowing how we behave? Personality is awesome. Personality traits is fun to figure out, why am I behaving like this? Especially when you're in relationships. So today I'm going to go into the emotional field of iridology. Your eyes speak the truth and everything else is a lie, and we know that. We just subconsciously know that, because when you look at somebody's face, you actually have this intuitive reading of like, you tell me a lie, right? And so now we actually went so deep into it that when I do an iridology assessment, I'm not hanging out in the physical field anymore, because as you know, true holistic healing is in the physical, in the emotional, and in the spiritual. We have 3-4 layers and we have to touch them all. So long time ago, we only thought like we are like machines and we have to fix one part, you know what I mean? Like, let's go about the gallbladder. So I'm fixing the gallbladder, maybe with digestive enzymes, because you can't break down your fats correctly. But the gallbladder is associated with the emotion of bitterness, right? So if that person is always bitter, then every single day when they hold on to bitterness, then the gallbladder is not getting healed, even if I give those fat digestive enzymes, right? And then the next layer is that we have a spiritual layer on the gallbladder, and it comes to a certain time in your life that you had a soul experience that isn't around the area where the gallbladder hangs out. So this is when it gets big. And that's a juicy part, and I'm going to keep it for the end, so you stay till the end. No, I'm kidding. So this is nothing new. That slide here, but you can still take pictures. It's always nice to see a summary of it. This should not be new anymore for us. We're in 2022. We know it. We know that when somebody has heart issues, let's talk about heart attacks, right? When does heart attack show up the most? When you have bogged down so much into your business, you forgot you have a life, you forgot you have relationships, you put all your focus in this corporation, and suddenly one day to the next, bam, you have a heart attack. What happened? Well, the heart is associated with the energy of the small intestines plus with the emotional feeling joy, you know? So maybe there wasn't that much joy anymore. The higher we kind of climb, the more important it is we keep the joy in our field of healing. So when a client comes to me and they tell me they had a heart attack, then I have to dig a little deeper, because I can help them with the herbs, right, and with the diet. But if they keep having the same way of looking at things, more of that feeling of like, you know, dog eats dog world kind of thing, I don't know if that is really a good vibrational joy energy in the heart, right? When you always have to look over your shoulder, you're getting cut off of being the CEO, right? So I'm bringing awareness to that with the first consultation. And this is what we did now. So we worked on it for many, many years all over the world, Japanese, Australians, Germans, big time, Russians too. I don't know if I should say Russia right now, but they did a lot of research in this field as well. So in this case, this is our mapping now that we had. So most people are like, well, what does that mean when I'm angry? I mean, I'm angry sometimes too. If you hold something for a short time, it's not a problem, because that's called express yourself. Because I don't know if you're from the meditative world. I'm in the meditative world, and sometimes I felt guilty of feeling angry. I felt like, oh, bad Birgit, you're angry, right? But there's something to be said to express your feelings, you know? And the good thing is I'm from Austria, so we're very straightforward. So that's good. So I couldn't suppress that one. If I don't like you, I'll tell you, trust me. And so in this case, so I don't really suppress my anger then, because you will know instantly, and then we'll hug it out, right? I don't think we should also meditate it away. The longest time I was trying to meditate it away. You know what I mean? How to say the clouds come in and let them go and pass them away and don't hold on. No, when you're angry about a situation, and sit with it and get really angry and just think about it all, and then you say, okay, I think I have chewed enough on it, I'm going to let go of it now. And I think that's a much more safer way as suppressing your feelings as well, which is, you know, all from my practice as a yogi or a meditator and my whole field in this holistic world. I think we should work on our emotions and feel them. But should we hold on to them? No. So that's when it goes a little bit deeper. So when I have clients coming to me with breast cancer, and this is where it gets really important, because breast cancer is, the breast tissue. And what is the breast symbolizing? Nurturing, nourishing. I mean, the first thing we do with our newborns is put them on our breasts, because the world is so harsh and cold, the cry and scream coming out, and we're like, oh, okay, come right here. So breast is the center for nourishing and nurturing. So what happens is, what we found out is, with people with breast cancer, they are the super duper nurturer. They nurture everything. The stray cat who comes by, the dog from the neighbor, the bird, the squirrel, everything, and the families and everybody. And this is why it's so hard sometimes too when people lose somebody on breast cancer, because they feel that void on that person, because they nurtured everybody else. So I need to teach then my client, when they come to me and say, I've beaten breast cancer once and now it came back. And then I dig deeper. Then it's not so much in the nourishment and the herbs. I mean, that's always a second, third plan. But I'm like, so what happened? And there was this one client who came to me who had twice breast cancer. And I said, so what did you do the first time? And I wanted to know, like, who nurtured you, who took care of you, who made your juices, who drove you back and forth. She's like, it wasn't such a big deal. It was only level 2 grade cancer, and I didn't want to make a big deal, and I have 2 sons, and I didn't want to interrupt their lives. So I did everything on my own. I was okay. I could do it on my own, So she just made sure that everybody felt comfortable with her cancer without needing the help from them. Do you see what I'm saying right here? Exactly. So the universe presented her breast cancer. I mean, that sounds bad too, but there was a lesson to be learned from it, right? And for her, it was you giving your last little bit to everybody else, and you feel guilty of asking for help. So when she came to me the second time, and I was like the only resource, she thought, like, I tried everything, now I'm going to try out this iridologist, right? I like that I'm always kind of a little bit on the end side of approaches, because then they already tried everything else, and I'm like, okay, good. Now you're here. The universe said, okay, you get it a second time, you try this. And now go to her. Maybe she has a little insight. And that's exactly what I have, an insight into her eyes. So I said to her, I'm like, from now on, we're going to work on your ability to ask for help. And so I said to her, I'm like, the first homework I gave to her was that you need to go to Whole Foods and get some of those ingredients for the juice that I suggested. And I said, you're not allowed to get one single item out of the shelf by yourself. She's like, what? You need to ask everybody around you, can you give me the celery? Can you give me the cucumber? Can you give me the ginger? And it was such a torture for her, because she felt like she didn't want to be of nuisance. She didn't want to waste anybody's energy to help her, but that is exactly where we had to go. And then I said, and then you go home and then you ask your husband to make it. And she said, well, he doesn't know anything. He'll figure it out just like you did, right? And so this is exactly what I changed, and I made a profound experience. Not only that her husband and her sons always wanted to help her, but she always turned them down. And giving and receiving is the same pleasure. Like, for example, isn't it Mother's Day tomorrow, right? Yeah. Exactly. So it feels great when I get my flowers, even if I forget to water them and they die in like 2-3 days sometimes, right? My bad. But when I get them, it feels so good. And when my kids ask me, what should we get you for your Mother's Day, then I give them a long list. I'm not going to be one of those moms who say, oh, just your presence is nice, or your attention is nice. I'm like, okay, I like the Dove chocolates. They have little messages in there. They're like, have you ever seen those? They're like fortune chocolates. And I give them all those, and that makes them laugh, because I want to teach them also that it's okay to give an answer when somebody says, what can I do for you? When somebody really says that, that means, I care about you, and I'm going to make sure that you feel good, and then later on, maybe someday you can something do for me, right? But it doesn't have to be mathematically either, and she was worried about that, that if she asks too much, the next time in Whole Foods, she has to clean up the aisle or something, right, for the employees, because she asked too much. So no, it should be a natural process, and unfortunately no mothers don't want to ask for help, right? And that's why it's good that we have a day. So this goes in every single field of my consultations, and this is what iridology looks like right now. So what does it look like? Let's go into the right picture right here with the right arrow right there, right? This is a major, major story. You know how holistic practitioner, I don't know if you're holistic practitioners, we get lectures from the universe too, where they send us a client so we learn more, right? Like, have you ever had thyroid clients and they all come in like 50, 20, 30, all with the same problem, and you're like, what is going on? It's like we're being tested to get really good in it. So there was this one client who comes to me, and he was like very young, and he had like this knee and leg problems, right? And so what happened is he was young, 26, and he could barely walk, right? And I invited him into my practice, and he had to walk through the waiting room and into my practice. He couldn't make it there. That's how bad in shape he was, 26. So I'm like, okay, then I just put the chairs out in the hallway. Nobody was there, and we were sitting in the hallway talking, what's going on, literally. I'm like, okay, I'll come to you. You don't have to walk. So what happens to, he had this kind of inflammation, we call that the white spot right in the center of 6 o'clock, which is the knee energy reflector, right? He has done everything. Remember, people come to an iridologist when everything else didn't work. Let's go right back to it. So he tried it all. He tried, massage, chiropractor, herbs, nutrition, medical doctors, everything, and they cannot find out what is wrong with him, right? So his knee, the knee is associated with the emotions of stepping into your life. Like that. What is it? What can you not do? Like, where is he not stepping into? So then I said, well, what is going on with your life? It seems like you're not stepping into your life, like into the life that you want to live or what you want to do. Turns out his dad passed away 2 years before, and he was the only child, and his mom didn't know what to do. They had a family business. So the son came back, stopped college, right, and took care of the family business, got into the role of his dad, ran the business, and thought he's going to just do it for a year till his mom figures out how to be on her own. Mom never figured out how to be on her own, because why? Why would she? He took on the role from everything else. He brought the checks for the mortgage, and he took the business on. So he became the replacement for her growth. She didn't grow. You know what I mean? What means with his mom needed to be self-sufficient. The mom needed to learn to run a life without leaning on somebody, and so she leaned so heavily on him that he couldn't take a walk anymore. He couldn't take a step forward. So when I said it to him, he, of course, then it resonated with him, and he started crying because he didn't want to hurt his mom's feeling. But I'm like, you're not here to help to babysit her. She needs to step up too. So then we had a talk, and that all is being done without me being a psychologist. Let's get back to it. I'm reading a map, right? So I was reading, what are you not doing stepping forward? And then this whole thing kind of comes out of control here. So I'm not figuring it out from psychology, but I'm figuring it out from the point of view what I'm reading here. So that was his history, that he needed to have this moment of clarity if he want to step into his life. And it was probably planned already before this whole thing happened. So long story short, of course they did that. He moved away, he went back to college, started his own life. His mom figured out how to be on her own. She sold half of the business, and everybody's happily ever after, and the knee pain disappeared within 6 months. We never even changed anything. So this is the power of emotional detachment to the organ systems, right? So in this case, you want to do emotional freedom tapping. I love emotional freedom tapping. I don't know if you know about already. It's just tapping acupuncture points or acupressure points in a rhythmic way by telling your own story. I like that because I was always, when I learned emotional freedom tapping, I'm like, well, what story do I have to tell myself, right? And there was this one master acupuncturist from China. He's like, why you guys in the Western world always have to talk? and I'm like, what does it mean? He's like, you can think it and just follow along. There's nothing wrong. There's no right and wrong talking. people just like to talk, so emotional freedom came up with this talking, like, you know, because I deeply, brutally love myself, right? Did you guys ever know that? You don't even have to say it, because the first problem is when people learn emotional freedom tapping, it's just like, what do I have to say? You know, they're worried to fall over the words, they're worried they don't say it right and then mess it up. It's an energetic field, and as you know here today in this house, the founder of Biology of Beliefs is here, right? Big cheer here when I read that. Same thing with the emotional freedom tapping. If you believe now that you can release it because you put your awareness towards letting go, you know what will happen? You let go. Exactly. But then there's also the little thing that when you fall along those tapping points are really associated with the energetic blockages from specific feelings. So when we tap them in this circle, we can release it. So, you know, you can try it for everything and anything, and I give those to my clients, and they can use it as self-therapy. I send them a YouTube video, literally, that's what I'm doing. So I'm not getting certified in it because I'm telling them anyway, you can say whatever you want, right? So that's what we use. I'm also a color puncturist, which is we use acupuncture, but instead of needles nowadays, I use light. And we know all that, right? Light has a healing frequency. It's like singing. The color orange is a frequency of a tone that you can sing, right? So when I have somebody who has more of a blocked liver or, you know, the knee energy, then I put the meridian point of the knee meridian channels with a light of green, which is green is healing and calming. So that doesn't come from me, so I didn't create it, but I worked with Peter Mandl, who is from Germany, and he was the major person for color puncture. So in this case, I associated then with the irises, which he didn't. So now we also found out that we have shadow eyes on top of the forehead who look just like the mapping from the eyes. So when I see now a DNA weakness in your liver, I'm going on top of your overhead and already shine light, literally. So that sounds great, doesn't it? Shine light into your DNA. So I'll put the light on the DNA then, and then actually it can actually take already a slower process of having ear issues in it. So that is the first part that a lot of people don't know about iridology. And now here's this with my dating side. This is when I'm talking about personalities and why your relationship will fail. No, I'm just kidding. Remember biology of belief? This is not good what I just said. But it might give you an understanding why you're rubbing heads sometimes about certain specific tools. So here, it's just like, this is my teaching philosophy here for you guys today. What I'm talking about is if you have green eyes, sorry, they don't exist. Because it's, I'm sorry, me either. What it is when we looked at the digital cameras, it's blue with a layer of yellow over it. Yellow is associated with kidneys, so that means you have a higher chance of having a weakness being too acidic or having a weakness with kidneys, right? So that's why it's still a blue eye, right? So what does that mean now in this world of personality traits, right? I'll give you another talk someday what it means organ-wise, but today I'm more entertaining for you guys because you're spending the day with me on my Mother's Day weekend. So here's the thing. What we found out, we filled out thousands and thousands and thousands of people with blue eyes and green eyes. We had them ask questions about the personality and things that kind of bothers them, and they all came out with 90% like that. They always take on everybody else's stuff. So they're always concerned, like they carry the burden on their neck and shoulder. Exactly, right? Give me a little signs behind him so he doesn't see that. Yeah. So if you are here as a couple, yeah, we know already you're taking everybody else's stuff out because you have blue eyes right there. So what I'm saying is they need to learn to protect and honor themselves. They have a little bit of a difficulties to disassociate with their friends' problems or their husband's problems or their wife's problems. They carry it with them, right? And then they get so disconnected that they don't anymore why they feel so tired and exhausted, because they spiritually and emotionally carry the cross for everyone in the relationship. Does that make sense? So organ-wise, we found out that they have a lymphatic system stagnation. Lymph, what does the lymph do? It flows through the whole body like the blood circulation, and it's your immune system support, right? So that's the same thing associated emotionally now. Maybe there is a stagnation because you're not pushing away the attackers, right? So that's where we're at. And this is where we're going into an immune system, and we explain to them that they need to focus on the flow of life. That is not that juicy yet as in 20 minutes, just to let you know. If you fall asleep and yawn, you'll get the excitement later, trust me. Those are just like general things we thought like, oh, that's cute, 90%. That's a high research, you know what I mean? When we pass things like this, you don't assume that. So with brown eyes, they're mixed. You can see the fibers through it. And so that's when we call them mixed eyes. They have a family member with blue, a family member with brown, right? They actually have the ability to be a multidimensional thinker. So if you have a business and you need to understand both sides of opinion, then you don't want to talk to the blue eye person because we only have one opinion, and that's ours. Multidimensional means that they can see things from all different angles, which is great. But they can sometimes be too much, too intense, and too fluctuating in their emotions. Sometimes I even say that they have a little bit of personality split. I like that version. They have like this professional phase, and then they walk home, and then they're like that home person. And it always makes my clients laugh when they have a mixed eye and I say, you have a split personality. She's like, how do you know that? You know, because they're mixed eye, and this is what we found out from research. So the next thing is, now how about the dark brown eyes, one color brown? Those are my favorite friends because they are inward and outwardly loud and open, and they say it out front. Remember when I said Austrians just tell you when they don't like you? Which is not good, but good too at the same time. Same thing, I'm living in Austria and I have lots of friends from Italy. When I meet my Italian friend from Rome, and the first thing she's like, okay, let's go and have dinner. And I'm like, I'm not really hungry, that doesn't count. You know what I mean? Like everybody loves each other over food. And this is a really, if you go over there and you tell them you're gluten intolerant, you better not even land in Italy, okay? So they're very inward and outward, very open, very organized, very family oriented, but what the problem is, that's the flow in the endocrine system. What is the endocrine system? The adrenals, the thyroids, you know, they can sometimes get burned out a little bit of being so focused that everybody is happy, everybody's involved, included, and so that's why I'm giving them that they need a little bit more organization in the endocrine system. Physically. I like you guys. You're already, at the end of this, you guys probably separate. Okay, so next one. So this was not the juicy thing yet. Now we know blue, brown. Okay, that's a good story. But now we have indicator for personality that is perfect for a profession. So I had a business with my ex-husband, and we hired people, and I was doing this research. So I asked them, I don't know if this was legal, but I'm like, can I take a picture from your eyes so we know which position you should take on? And they're like, what? And I didn't even want to ask them what they think, because at the end, I know better, remember? I'm an iridologist. I'm reading the soul patterns, right? So what happens is we found out, oh, okay, we have analytical, expressive, mediators, and catalysts. So, for example, you can see here a blue eye with a brown pigment. You can see brown eyes with a black pigment. I found out that this is the person I'm going to give over my taxes, my accounting, my fact searching, right? Because those are the fact followers. They're also very hard to be spontaneous. Like if I would say, hey, let's go skinny dipping, they're like, okay, first of all, is that law? Is it against the law in America? Or like they have to go back into the background to figure out if it's right or wrong, right? So they're analytical, which is good because then that puts me less into trouble. If I have somebody who gives me like, okay, better not doing it here, and don't take your top off in Florida, because that's not allowed, but in Austria it is. Fact collectors. Fact collecting is somebody with a pigment in the eye that has a different color, which is awesome. And that's why nobody better can do that as this. And they like it, and they love it, and it comes naturally for them. They're like, okay, let's figure this out, pros and cons. Like, when I make a decision, and I have a friend who had this pigment, she's like, even about relationship, she's like, okay, let's do a pro and con. What does it do really good? What is and I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, but makes sense. Pros and cons. So what is the problem? Most likely they are perfect analyzing, but they cannot let go of toxins. So in the holistic world of iridology, that is a pigmentation in the adrenal area, 6 o'clock, right? You know that from iridology. So the adrenals kind of collect a little bit too much on toxins, so we support that. Emotionally, adrenals, maybe that whole over-analyzing is causing a little bit of an exhaustion, could be true too. And the third thing is that they are analytical and it feels good. So what do I do with an analytical person? I'm trying to make them more spontaneous. Because there's no pro and con in any kind of category. I think we're here in this life to learn what our strengths are and then figure out what our weaknesses are. And then when we turn around 120, we've figured it all out, right? So the next thing is here is this is probably whole California. Expressive, entertaining. You know, I mean the whole like world is watching America's Oscars, and it was definitely entertaining, right? So that's where I'm saying. So how do I know that? You can see suddenly those little loops between it. You see those loops? That is an expressive person. So when we go back to that one from before. Let me go back. See that straight lines. You go to this one, what is there? Loops. And those, the more loops you have, the more entertaining you are, okay? So if you have a boring boyfriend or girlfriend, then take an eye picture and then find yourself somebody with some loops in it. But again, it's a pro and con. Like sometimes they're too entertaining and you don't anymore what's right and what's wrong, or what is a joke and what is not a joke. So very social, spontaneous, entertaining, fun. Those are the people who really suffered during the COVID times because they need the people to be with them. They want to be with them. They cannot be at home. They don't want the virtual. They need the groups. They need the energy. They like it. They like people. They like crowds. They like to be in concerts, stuck in the middle, and they love every minute of it. And I'm meanwhile already like, like get me out of here. So that is what we found out of that. So mediator, the exact opposite, and not even a pigment, as you can see. So if you have brown eyes, you have those straight fibers as well. And if you have dark brown eyes, same thing. Those are the very patient, loyal friends, good teachers. And that's why I put the teacher picture up. They're like, gosh, how much patience did they need with my kids in the last 2.5 years during COVID, right? So that's where I'm at with that. So if you have that, that means one thing for sure. You love peace and harmony. You can't stand the Thanksgiving where the uncle comes over and stirs up the pot and creates disharmony on the dinner table that makes you kind of feel like exhausted just watching it, literally watching it. They need the peace harmony, which means that's why it looks literally like a lake, right? Doesn't it look like a lake? There's no waves, nothing. It's just kind of like completely like, imagine this is like a swan just sits in the center. No waves. That is a person who can get very stressed out when the environment around them is stressed out. So they always want to have, they would probably want to go camping quietly, somewhere peacefully. They don't want any big stir-up concerts where you're squeezed in the middle. So when you know that, that is fantastic, because then you know, oh, that's why I feel uncomfortable. What does that mean? Should I always be camping in the woods, or should I learn how to go into a concert, right? And I think, again, we should try out where we have not the strength in it. It's like you know, muscle training. If your squats don't hurt, then it doesn't mean you should stop them. You just work on it, and that's, I think, is personality. So here's the interesting thing after this talk. That is, what if you have both? You have loops and a pigment. That is when you're creative, an artist, whatever, but you can follow through because you're actually figuring out the facts, the pros and cons, and you know when something doesn't work that you're like, okay, scratch that, let's start. You don't marry your first idea. you create new ideas. And who better to show that is Steve Jobs, and he was the only one ever gotten fired from his own company. I like that. And it didn't slow him down. He had new ideas. He created Pixel, right? I mean, let's think about it. So if you have loops and a pigment, you're literally both. You're creative, but also follow through. So that is awesome. And here is now the philosophy I have for you in this world. Most people are attracted to the opposite person. So if I'm more that straight lines, which I have a tiny little loop, gladly one loop, but I should be with somebody who is more spontaneous, so I get pushed a little bit out of my comfort zone, right? Because I have also a little pigment where I need to overanalyze, like, is that right? Is that wrong? Is that right? Is that wrong? So I should be dating somebody who is spontaneous. So I'm divorced, and when I start dating, I ask them for their iris pictures after the second date. I don't know if that's legal or not. He's with me right now, Michael, so I'm like, hey, I do this research, and can I take a picture? And he had all those loops, and that made me laugh, because that's exactly how I felt, very entertaining, and made me laugh. And the funniest thing was when we were on the third or fourth date, when you go to a restaurant, you say, sorry, I have to go to restrooms quickly, and I come out, there was this swarm of people around him, and I only left for 5 minutes. And in 5 minutes, my boyfriend knew the whole bar, everybody's first name, and they had already association where they grew up with each other and where the pattern crossed. When you leave me alone for 5 minutes in the restaurant, you know what I'm doing. I'm looking down at my phone, so I don't have to talk to anybody. And when I saw that, I felt like, okay, here it is again. That's the research. That's the research of the lacunas. You've got to be both. So that's why I'm thinking this is where we're going. We are attracted to the opposite. So our children, the children of the futures, will have both, actually. They will have a lacuna and a pigment. And what does that make us? Creative and follow through, which is amazing. So all of those new things that we created nowadays, comes from the generation before. Look at this whole digital world. I bet with you, if I take a picture from all of them, they all have loops and pigments, because they're just like, okay, this is what you guys did in the 80s, this is what we're doing now, right? And that's exactly where we're at. So that's how easy it is to figure that one out, how to date, but there's a little few curveballs. And the curveballs are this, that you can have anxiety, a hydrogenic, a scurfrim, or a lipemic diastasis. So what that means in this case is that the ring of freedom, I love that one, okay? So if you have a ring around it that looks like a highway crossing through it, like in LA in traffic, that means you are a little bit more on the anxious side. I'm sorry, you get easily anxious. You have a little type A personality, but you can get overwhelmed. So when that spontaneous person is pushing too much your button, you can shut down a little bit, because you need to get things done and you don't have time for all that, right? So that means wound up, ready to go, a lot of self-drive, prone to anxiety, type A personality. And the ring of harmony is when you have those flocks around it. So if you have brown eye and you have yellow flocks around it, though they need peace. They need peace. Don't quarrel with them. Don't wake them up at 2 in the morning and say, hey, we need to talk about this. I want to talk about it more. Even if it's great that you can talk and express yourself, do not do this with those, because they want peace and harmony, and they get worn out by having to express themselves over and over and over and over and over and over. They just kind of like, they want to just get over it, right? And as this last two slides that they give me, because I have 1 minute more to talk, when you have this black ring around your eyes, either brown or blue, you are here in this lifetime for a mission. You came here, I believe in incarnation. I don't know what you guys believe, but we're all here to constantly figure something out. And then we go back having amnesia again, and then we're trying it again, and then again. And sometimes we remember things, right? And those are the people who remember that they're here to literally follow through with these missions they're most likely have to accomplish. But they don't know exactly what it is. They know that they have a mission, right? And so that is very funny because I have a friend, Oda, and every 3 years she changes her job, she changes her education, changes everything, and then she calls me up, she's 50 now, and she says, hey, Birgit. And I'm like, what? I figured it out what I want to do in my life. And it makes me laugh because like, she's so on a search that she will not give up, which gives you a drive. This gives you always a learning drive, always a figure it out drive, because you're never like, oh, I'm going early retiring. No, because you still don't know exactly what you're here for everybody else to profit from. So that is a great sign too. And then the ring of determination is my last slide for right now because I think that's funny for me. We get this creamy ring around the edge when we age, right? And that shows inflexibility, right? So I'm a yogi, I believe in meditation. I'm so flexible, I think, right? And one day my daughter said something and I'm like, well, that's not true, I said. And she's like, you're so inflexible. Right? So I looked up and I have this sign and I'm like, dear God. So it comes with age, but it means that we're a little bit inflexible. There can be a little bit more stiffness in your arthritis or joints, right? That's the physical one. But the most important thing is if you have that one, you need to always keep one thing in mind. Stay open-minded. Even if you think you have seen it all like I do, even if you know everything already that I do, I might just be inflexible with the new things that comes around, right? And this is all what I wanted to show to you guys today because my time is over. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you had fun. So my booth is 435, I think, is it 433, Michael? Yeah, so facts not correct completely with me. I give level 1, level 2 iridology courses, certifications in the physical, emotional, and spiritual field. I give the newest curriculum. When people get certified through our organization, they have to get the credits in every 2 years because we stay flexible with our knowledge, right? And so come and visit me. I give 10-minute quick iridology readings. In those 10 minutes, I just pick one or the other, whatever message comes through, the emotional, the spiritual, the physical one. So see me at the booth and then find out if you're compatible, if you came with your boyfriend or with your husband. Thank you, guys. Bye.